Welcome to the Leather Lounge, a weekly show recorded live every Tuesday where we explore the latest innovations in the Bitcoin ecosystem. From DeFi and dApps to digital art, we bring you in-depth conversations with developers, artists, and community leaders who are shaping the future. Whether you're here to learn about cutting-edge projects or to deepen your understanding of blockchain basics and decentralization, Leather is your go-to source for all things Bitcoin. Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Well, hello and welcome back to the Leather Lounge, where each week we bring you the conversations with the most prominent thought leaders, founders, builders, artists, and innovators in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm your host, Sean Longstreet, and in honor of Earth Day, today's episode explores one of the most misunderstood aspects of Bitcoin, its relationship with energy and the environment. The mainstream narrative often stops at the idea that Bitcoin consumes a lot of energy, and what's often missed is the broader context, the kind of energy being used, and how Bitcoin mining can help scale clean infrastructure, reduce waste, and create powerful incentives for renewable innovation. It's a theme that we've explored before with guests like Bitcoin philosopher Troy Cross and Nicholas Druin, founder of Constellation Heating, who demonstrated how mining can repurpose waste heat and lower emissions. Our guests today are carrying that vision forward in exciting new ways. Joshua Phelps and Mark Smith are the co-founders of Carbon Country, an innovative project that integrates solar farming, regenerative agriculture, and Bitcoin mining to revitalize American farmland, sequester carbon, and increase access to sustainable energy. They're also active contributors to the Stacks ecosystem, where they operate validator nodes and help secure the Bitcoin Layer 2 network that enables smart contracts and decentralized applications, all while anchoring to the security of Bitcoin. Their work represents a multifaceted approach to Bitcoin, one that expands its utility and drives real-world impact. This is a powerful and timely conversation about why Bitcoin is not only compatible with environmental goals, but can help advance them. If you enjoyed these conversations, please do subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube and leave us a review. It's an easy way that you can support us and help connect us with more listeners. So let's get into it. Josh and Mark, welcome to the lounge.
Thank you so much for having us.
So I gave you a very quick intro, but what if we'll get into your backgrounds and everything, but first let's start with what is Carbon Country?
So the idea for Carbon Country is that we can transform small and medium holder farms by adding agrivoltaics, which is solar and farming, and carbon removal. These are, small farms in this country in the era of, large-scale monoculture, industrial agriculture are really sort of going the way of the dodo bird. And so, but these are beautiful properties all over many near major metropolitan areas. And we're looking to sort of repurpose them and find new value in a way that's really, truly meaningful for both the communities and for the environment.
I'm wondering about this connection between fiat money and kind of fiat food. You mentioned the death of these massive monoculture farming techniques. Can you talk about the limitations, the current, situation that we've found ourselves in over the last several decades with food, the food system and food culture in America, and how possibly Bitcoin can be innovating our food system as well as our financial system?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it might not be apparent immediately how Bitcoin can impact farming, but I think if where we start thinking about it is sort of a sort of step process. So if you think about those small and medium-sized farms and large farms as well, we believe that agrivoltaic should be incorporated into pretty much every project or every farm where there's the transmission capacity to take the energy, and where it makes sense from a financial perspective. um, just the fact that you can diversify your income streams by having, in many cases, a 20-year PPA adjusted for inflation, sort of undergirding your agricultural operation, that in and of itself is transformational. The other part that I think is and what we're doing is using the Bitcoin mining that we're doing on the farm to help allow the renewable energy assets that we're putting in place on the farm, be more profitable. So, for example, we're using it to be able to fully net meter at retail rates versus merchant rates, which is a big difference. And then the other piece that I think is really interesting about the idea of incorporating, if you sort of buy the idea that renewable energy and farming can go together in a really coherent fashion, that and make really the whole operation stronger from a financial perspective. The other piece that's really fascinating, I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface, is the idea of using the Bitcoin that is generated through the mining as capital that is able to kind of transform the cash flow situation of the farmer. And really, if you think about farming, the cash flow issue and just all of the financing that's necessary to engage in an activity where you borrow up front lots of money, you pray that the weather is right, the crops are right, there's so many things that have to work out, and then finally, after all of that struggle, after all of that time, you produce a crop, then you get paid. I mean, you have to bridge that whole time frame. And, if things don't go right, you're really screwed. Maybe there's some sort of crop insurance or something like that. But imagine if you had another source. If you think about how many people have lost their family farms to, bank loans that they had to take out when they had a bad year, this could be truly transformational. So those are some aspects of how we believe that, the integration of Bitcoin into farming can really truly be transformational.
Okay, so walk me through so I can understand. I'm pretty familiar, like I mentioned in the beginning, with this concept that you attach Bitcoin miners to use the excess energy, and you can either hold that Bitcoin or you can sell it right away to help pay for the cost of solar, for example. But how is this different from just kind of what anyone can do? How is this unique to farming as far as like literally the layout? Where are the solar panels going? How is this unique to the farming situation?
Yeah, so the idea is that of agrivoltaics is that renewable energy, in this case solar energy. We're also incorporating energy from waste heat from our biochar operation, which will be another discussion. But if you just look at the solar side, what's interesting is that if you integrate solar energy with what we're doing in terms of sheep ranching, they're really sort of a symbiotic relationship and can be mutually beneficial. The sheep, we're right now ranching without solar panels while we prepare for our first projects. But you can see, like, if there's one tree in the middle of the pasture, the sheep will go there and sit under the shade. So the shade is a big deal, and it reduces the heat stress, which is an increasing issue in agriculture for all kinds of livestock. Diminishes their need to for water, which is both good for the planet and good for their health. And as a result, they actually end up gaining weight faster because of the lack of the heat stress, and their ability to find good fodder under those panels. So and from a solar side, it's much cheaper and much less potentially damaging than running a mower under the panels. And so the sheep are really quite gentle. and they benefit from the food. And on the O&M side, on the solar, you get a more attractive option. The other thing that's really cool is the final benefit is that we're doing rotational grazing under the panels, and so by fertilizing those sections and with the hoof action, we're actually driving the roots of the grass deeper and ensuring that our solar sites don't have the kind of erosion and diminishment of the quality of the soil that you see on some of these larger solar sites that are not doing the same thing. So we can actually leave the soil in better condition, more total organic carbon than when we got it, plus receive all of these benefits, both on the livestock side and the renewable energy side. So we think there's like a really exciting, synergy there.
It's amazing how many pieces are coming together to make this beneficial from so many perspectives. And like you just mentioned with the how it's beneficial for the soil, it's rather than going through and tilling everything, mowing all the time, you'll have it's like it's a loss on multiple perspectives. But if you let the animals do their thing, they're going to mow down the grass and the weeds. And tell me about how their hoof action is beneficial for the soil, because and maybe we can talk more broadly about farming practices in general, about how it is beneficial to have animals on the land rather than tilling or mowing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're it's kind of really just going back to I don't know if you're spiritual, of how God created, or how things started, right? That in these vast prairie lands, that like if you were to watch buffalo or and we used to have, we're in Maryland and people were surprised, but we used to have buffalo on this eastern side, and they actually were responsible. Like, people think that this area was like completely forested. No, but like their activity, their grazing, the hoofs, etc., all of that created a kind of savanna here in not just in the west, but also here in the east. And so they have the ruminants really have and the grazing, just naturally they kind of graze in packs. And so what we're doing, both for protection and to stay close to their unit, and they sort of naturally rotationally graze. So what we're trying to do is basically like mimic those practices on our little stretch of the universe. But really it's kind of just all going, and I think a lot of these things are right, like just going back to nature, and that nature really did know best.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good picture. I want to put a pin in the biochar because I'm curious about that as well, and the carbon sequestering. But let's let's talk about you two and how you got connected with each other, and because you both have synergistic backgrounds in not only farming but in the Web3 space. So, Josh, let me throw it to you for an intro so we can understand what you guys are bringing to the table in this partnership with Carbon Country.
Sure. I mean, do you want me to talk about how Mark and I met?
Sure. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we had, uh, as people do in DC, we had mutual friends. We just didn't even know it, and we kind of connected via a Web3 sort of virtual but also real museum called Archive, which was securing really amazing fine art via Kelly Wong, who was a professional art consultant. And what we did is we had a treasury, and then we were capturing the votes for what we should vote for on chain. And it was very experimental at the time, especially in the fact that it was sort of bridging the art world. Not just like NFTs were all of the rage at that time, but we were sort of doing something different, and that was very cool. And it was set up as a DAO, and Mark was a member. And then we realized, we were sort of both from DC. I was living in Mexico City at the time, but and then we realized we are also part of a friend's really cool streetwear shop in DC. And there was all these synergies that we were finding out. And Mark was always the most curious on the call, and even, would set up time with our one of our operators at the time, this gentleman Jordan, and we just started to vibe. And then I met him a few times in DC. We would do some museum tours and things like this, and coat drives with other people in the Web3 space, of which DC is a really robust community, so much that, there's an ETH DC happening on Thursday. There's a new strategy Bitcoin hub, which I'll plug because we're going to be an inaugural part of that. But, so I met Mark that way. And then December of 2023, we started talking, and he had this idea, which I want to totally give him the benefit of talking about that. And I was really enjoying my life in one of the coolest cities in the world, in Roma, in Mexico City. And he had this idea, and I was like, wow, do I really want to pack up all my stuff and go live on a farm in Southern Maryland? And the answer was yes. We went around. I have pictures of us in the snow in West Virginia. Another area that we're looking at, besides of our little area here in Maryland, just going around looking and deciding, like, where should we do this, because we knew it will work. And then we found this place in Maryland. We closed on it May 9th. I moved on to the property. Mark comes every day. He's over here. I'm pointing that way. He's in the barn over there. I'm down, sitting on the porch in the pump house shack where we have made a residence, and off we go. So it's been an amazing experience, and it has not been, fast. It's such a combination of both software and hardware, I would say, and really boots on the ground, which is the only way to do this. You can't just talk about it. And, we're out here stringing up, thousands of yards of fence. We have our sheep flock has gone from 22 to 35 in the last 11 days, and we've got chickens, and we've got crazy dogs that want to roam 15 miles. But, and maybe we can get into it later, but, we're doing this for real. We've joined the Farm Bureau. I've joined the comms committee. Mark's on the legislative committee. We want to make our network, these farmers network, and bring them along with what we're doing. And that's how Mark, he didn't have to sell me that hard, but that's really, with my background in the NGO space, and always something, helping people has always been ingrained in what I've been doing, whether it was cancer research to NGOs to now this, and that was really, and he and I are and that's what we bonded over the most, I think, and while we're doing this.
How can you add on to that, Mark? Let's get your background and how you
connected.
Yeah,
it's not every day that you convince someone to live in, leave your beautiful apartment in Mexico City and live in a shack without, plumbing. But I think, both of us saw the opportunity, and not just the opportunity to to do something cool and just to make a buck, but really to have a deep impact in the communities where we work. And so I think building off of that ethos as a foundation, like how can we not just generating like tax revenue, but like how can we generate employment? How can we educate the next generation of farmers, electrical engineers, folks that want to get involved in the carbon removal space, or environmental space. All of those things were really elements that that we really had in mind, and are kind of driving this idea. Like, we're not going to be successful if we just become rich. Like, we will be successful if we leave our community in a completely different situation, both from a resilience perspective in terms of ability to respond to all of the challenges that of today's world, but also from a employment and really just a learning and skills perspective as well. So all of those things, I think, really motivate us and are the reason we want to get up every day and piss in the outhouse.
Yeah. That's something I hear a lot of guests talk about is, yes, there's NGU, there's number go up technology, right? But there's also this element of how can I lift up everyone around me? I'm curious about the logistics. So maybe you can start by painting us the picture about, tell us more about the farm you're on, the physical logistics of connecting everything. But also, if we can expand that to what does it mean to be interfacing with the community, to be working with the energy companies around you, and to be leading the way and building a blueprint that other people can follow as well.
Yeah, so in terms of like what we have planned on for this first pilot property, so the property that we're on is a 74 acre farm. The reason why we both liked it was that it had some pretty well developed barn infrastructure and fencing and water and for the animals, and then just this absolutely beautiful, 24-acre pasture, surrounded by trees. So like we're going to be able to do, 5 megawatts. So we're intending to do 5 megawatts of solar. So just enough to do to qualify for the community solar program in Maryland. And what that means is that we can actually sell solar, if we do it right, to our local community and reduce the rates that low income folks pay by 20%, and medium income folks by 10%. So we can really do um, a good turn for the community. This community, I pass a church that's nearby every day, and like the line of people that are food insecure and dependent on help is really quite large. So if we can have an impact there, I think it makes a big difference.
When you say 5 megawatts, how many square feet is that? How many panels is that?
So I mean, that's where we're talking about basically covering 20 acres of pasture with solar panels. Now, we're not doing it as a typical solar developer would do it, where they would try to pack as many panels in as possible. Like each of our line of arrays has a 15-foot space where you can drive a tractor through, and so it's quite a different setup. But all of our open pasture area, pretty much is going to have a solar panel on top of it or around it, and then we're going to be rotationally grazing the sheep underneath those panels. So using polywire fences. Josh referenced our livestock guard dogs. We have some Great Pyrenees and some Anatolian Shepherds that hopefully will grow out of their puppy unreliability and become great guard dogs. But yeah, and then the other piece of what we're looking to do here is and this is really exciting. And so on the is build the first large scale biochar plant in Maryland, and that's really, we're taking an input which is a waste product, so wood chips, and we're heating it to 700 degrees Celsius, and basically affecting a chemical transformation that turns it into a 90 some odd percent carbon soil amendments for that really has some incredible water retention and productivity implications for agriculture, plus sequesters a lot of carbon. So the combination of those two, I think is really exciting.
You guys got to be making a documentary about this. Do you have like film crews already on? It sounds like something that I would like love to watch. I would buy it on
Yeah,
Apple
hopefully it
TV.
won't be one of those documentaries where you like fail terribly, but like, we're really confident that
We've got a cot
we're
here, Sean. If you want to come do some, you're very welcome. We do take a lot of photos and videos, and
Yeah.
Mark's LinkedIn. You know,
we're trying to build in public.
kudos to him for
Yeah.
building in public. With the successes, and then sometimes, a few small setbacks, and we believe in that. Yeah, we definitely have a lot. We should and will put something together, but we'll always welcome a professional like yourself whoever controls the purse strings over at Leather Wallet, and get you over here.
I mean, I'm curious. Next time I come to the States, I wanna
Oh, we
plan
would
a
love to
visit.
have you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great,
Yeah.
great.
really. Okay, so I'm curious about again to connect to the community element because you mentioned that you have the ability to sell back the energy to the community. I'm assuming that if you're taking that path, that means that you are funneling energy away from Bitcoin mining. Is that a choice you have to make?
Well, so the way that we see it, and I didn't fully explain our renewable energy strategy. So, our view is that if you combine either net metering, which is basically you are able to sell at retail rates everything over and above what you consume. In our case, in our particular county, that's the 2 megawatts of capacity, which is a pretty considerable amount. And then obviously the community solar from up to 5 megawatts. So those are our commercialization strategies. But if you combine those strategies together with battery storage and Bitcoin mining, and then based on there's a big difference between the power price at sort of peak hours, peak consumption hours, like in the morning or in the evening, and then during the middle of the day. And so, and solar, right? It actually produces the most energy at the time when the prices are actually the lowest during the middle of the day. So how do you basically bridge that and create arbitrage opportunities connected to the price of Bitcoin and the hourly price of energy? And then obviously there's huge arbitrage opportunities when you really have some sort of natural disaster where power demand goes either one way or the other. And so having battery storage and the ability to sort of provide power in those kind of situations is really valuable. The other thing on the Bitcoin side, um, we're able to net meter up to 2 megawatts, but the catch is we can only net meter twice what we consume. Well, what better way to generate energy consumption than minting the cleanest collateral in the world, right? And so
Wow.
our Bitcoin mining, as compared to like a Mara or some other Bitcoin mining company where that's their principal sort of way of commercializing their operation, we're using it as enabler as well as an income stream, right? So it's enabling us to sell our renewable energy for 2.5 times the price. So 13 cents versus 5 cents, right? So I mean that's a big difference. And then if you think about Bitcoin and I as a manifestation of energy, Bitcoin mining is actually a way of sort of preserving that energy. So, like, if you think about California during the middle of the day with all the solar panels, like, so much of that energy is basically just completely being thrown out the window, right? Because of
Yeah.
curtailment. They're just producing too much. But if
Yeah.
they could actually store that energy, in Bitcoin, right? While they can't dispatch the energy again, they've basically, cut out the middleman. They didn't have to deal with utility to be able to commercialize that, and they've gone directly into minting an asset which is both collateral and immediate value. So, I think that's really transformational, and that every power project moving forward should really seriously consider having both Bitcoin mining and battery storage connected to it. I really believe that that's the future.
It's so obvious to us. We're preaching to the choir here, but what are the conversations like when you like I said at the beginning of the show, when people are just they can't get past the idea that Bitcoin mining consumes a lot of energy. It makes sense to us,
Yeah,
but what are those conversations like? How do you approach those people who are in that locked in that frame of mind?
yeah, and I think that well, it certainly helps to have the energy that's driving the Bitcoin mining be green energy, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that is really quite a difference. And then I think, you know, we're as I say, you know, we're using it in a different way, right? We're not, you know, trying to consume all of the energy that we provide, um, you know, with Bitcoin mining, but we are using it to basically leverage us into programs where we can provide a benefit to the community. And you know, it's the additional um, revenue stream in terms of you know, just kind of, you know, making the project more robust from a risk perspective, you know, the diversification that it provides, and then quite, you know, as we get more and more Bitcoin mined, you know, the sort of flexibility that it gives us on the capital side, right, to self finance, you know, that's really pretty transformational. But I'll have to tell you, like, we had two solar lenders decline us because we were Bitcoin mining. Like, you know, it was more of a kind of choke point 2.0 situation. But like the minute that they heard we were Bitcoin miner, it was like, oh, sorry, bye bye. You know, even though the
Wow.
project was great.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of resistance on the you know, the kind of environmental community. I think we're able to assuage that by the way that we're using, you know, this differently and as an enabler to develop more renewable energy and to get the kind of, you know, cash flow and financing that's necessary to accomplish that. But quite frankly, you know, I think there's other barriers too, just in terms of people just seeing it, you know, Bitcoin mining as something that's, you know, somehow sketchy or scurrilous or whatever, you know, particularly on the part of people, the lenders.
Yeah, we'll get there. Baby steps, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, and that's why like self-financing is so important, right? Like when we can really get it to the point like where we can get this up and running and not have to talk to a bank. Oh my God, you know?
Yeah. Let me ask one more question about the Bitcoin element. So, are you doing anything with the heat from mining? Like I know it's popular to do to warm greenhouse gases or radiant heating for housing. Are you incorporating any of that yet?
Well, so I'm really also interested in creating a heat capture sort of ecosystem as well. So one of the things that we talked about in the beginning of this project and that I've got my mind set on is building a sand battery. And there's only one company in the world, at least I've seen. There's a company in Norway called Polar Nights, and basically they filled a grain silo and insulated it with sand, and then run a electrical coil through it. And they say that the sand actually has amazing properties in terms of being able to store both heat and cold. So
Wow.
they claimed that they could store energy for 40 days. So right now with lithium ion batteries, like we're challenged to do 4 hours. So when you can actually imagine, right? We're on our biochar facility, like the whole part of the process is to heat, you know, those wood chips up to 700 degrees Celsius.
Hmm.
So like depending on the machine that we have, we either have between, you know, 3 and 9 megawatts of potential energy from waste heat. So the question is like, how do we efficiently store it and use it? So we're looking at, you know, connecting organic Rankine cycle machines to it so that we can transfer the heat into steam and drive a turbine and generate electrical energy, coupled with being able to actually like physically store the heat. And so, like, could we connect our Bitcoin mining operations to the heat that we're already producing from the biochar operation and just create this amazing kind of ecosystem, just as we're contemplating doing the same thing, you know, with energy generation and energy storage and Bitcoin mining? Like, I really think there's something there. So that's an aspect that we're talking to some battery experts at the University of Maryland to do some research on. And like like, God damn it, I'm gonna build a sand battery
Yeah.
and see what we can do, you know?
I can't imagine. So you have to be between the two of you, and maybe you can paint me the picture, help me understand like the team. But you need. It sounds like you need an engineering background. You have to understand Bitcoin mining. You have to have Web3 knowledge. You have to understand, being a founder and raising funds. What's the team you're operating? Are you guys just doing everything yourselves? How are you handling this unique skill set required?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just us. And like through the power of, YouTube and Chat GPT and the internet or whatever. I mean, you'd be amazed like what you can actually learn. And if you're I kind of view like we're in a time where, if you're really truly curious about something, you can educate yourself. And one of my skills, I guess, has always been able to get myself to close to a pretty expert level relatively quickly on various, complicated issues.
Hmm.
And so, like, we're just like learning about it and then just doing it. And then, I don't think there's any substitute for doing it. And obviously, like, we're excited to bring in additional capabilities. We're really, I think, it'd be great to have someone that has very deep renewable energy project development experience. Obviously we need some help on the CFO side. We've got someone doing that fractionally for us. But there's a lot of different roles, right, that eventually we look forward to filling. But honestly, like, I think like it's all about that pioneer spirit and, like, like, let's see what we can do together with this small and mighty team. And we've been able to accomplish a lot.
Yeah, and I want
Incredible.
to go back to just say the community has really been helpful. It was probably Mark over a year ago. We asked there's a DC Crypto Friends Telegram, and just said, hey, like we're interested in learning a little bit about mining, because once you get into using these ASICs and things like this, I mean, you want to take risks, but not too many since they are expensive. And somebody recommended a gentleman named John, and a local engineer. I think during the day he's in a bunker somewhere, and we can't get a hold of him. And then you might find him at a local meetup with a robot dog that he's programmed. But he has sort of helped guide us, and like Mark said, to the point where he doesn't need to be here all the time, but he can help us filter out dielectric fluid to make the miners more efficient. He can show us what's wrong when there's some chips on a board that need to be fixed and things like this. And and we've put in a lot of midnight oil with him and with other people. And then you mentioned fundraising and things like this, and Mark has really taken the lead on a lot of that. And we've got investors who are not just far away and writing checks, although we like that too, but we have some local that have the local knowledge of, like, excavation, and we were talking about waste wood that we need. And our second property, which is about 10 miles away, right next to one of the most beautiful parks in southern Maryland,
Hmm.
we have an excavator who's invested in us, who's helping us clear some of the land, so we can drop a container of Bitcoin miners on there as soon as possible, and then we have another investor who we just met going to some Bitcoin meetups, and I met him independently of. Then Mark went up to the Bitcoin Investor Conference and met him also, and he's a builder. He uses his hands to build houses, and we want to put tiny houses on these properties for people who want to come and be part of what we're doing, or check it out, or just enjoy the nature, whatever. And maybe another revenue stream of like Airbnb, or the camping websites and things like this. So um I think it's just that combination of doing everything we can, but also having people. I mean,
It
Mark,
takes a village.
it takes a
Like,
village.
we have some amazing collaborators. I appreciate.
And,
Yeah,
and the
thank you
batting
for
average
highlighting
of
that. Yeah.
people who visit and want to be part of this is about 1,000. Once people visit here and they see what's real,
Yeah.
and they pet the dogs and see the sheep or whatever, I mean, they're like, okay, they see the miners in the barn, they get it. So that's been great. But yeah, um, lean, like, I haven't read the Lean Startup book, but I imagine we're pretty lean in any
Yeah.
terms. But we've got, like Mark said, a village of people stepping up, and with sweat and also investments as well.
Well, I know Bitcoin excites people, people who are into this. They see the potential, they see the future that Bitcoin is hope. That's one common theme that we come down to. Well, you said it takes a village, but sometimes it takes building a village too. So I can't wait to see what you guys build with these tiny
Absolutely.
homes.
That's right. Yeah, we're stoked.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, let me ask how you got connected to the Stacks ecosystem.
Yeah, I can take that one. I think, and it's just super easy. Shaylee, who who works with you, I've known her for probably 4 years. Met at a Web3 event at one of the Art Basel Miami's. Our friends at Friends with Benefits DAO were throwing a bunch of parties down there, including a day party, and I just happened to sit with her, and we realized, oh, like we're both in the DC area, and she had worked at, I want to say, USAID. She had worked in the NGO space as I had, and we just hit it off and followed her journey. She's one of the founders, if not the first person who started the DC Crypto Friends Telegram group, which has gotten huge these days and led to its own, festival. And we just kept in touch. And then when she joined Stacks, I was like, that's awesome. And me and this crazy guy Mark are working on a pretty cool Bitcoin project. Let's talk. And then I want to pass it back to Mark, because when we learned about Granite and what we're trying to do and using Bitcoin to unlock working capital, I mean, that was a no brainer. And
Yeah, yeah. And I think, we were from the beginning, having played around with DeFi and all of that sort of stuff, like we wanted to find a way that we could address the working capital issues for our operation from the mining perspective, right? Without having to sell big, to sell our bridge to keep warm, right? So like we wanted to keep the upside in our Bitcoin, but be able to generate sufficient working capital to allow us to continue to expand. And so we looked at a number of different options. I mean, some of them offering sort of like stratospheric interest rates and stuff like that, and we're like, let's find something like having been burnt, like there's probably most like crypto curious people have, like, and some
Yeah.
of the schemes, like, let's vote
Mark.
and going
Oh, here
about
it
this
is.
the right way. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting called by my daughter.
Nice. Well, that's a good opportunity to shout out Trust Machines and Granite, because you mentioned, the necessity for people to take loans out from their Bitcoin, right? To not have to sell their Bitcoin. And Granite is a decentralized Bitcoin lending protocol. If you go to granite.world, you can join the waitlist, and it's a decentralized protocol. So you can, put your Bitcoin up as collateral, get US dollars if you need, to put a tiny home on your property or whatever it is. So, that it's definitely needed, because in America there's such a need for this Bitcoin lending. I know on the financing side too. I mean, it should be happening, but to the point of our conversation, it's, people are slow to move. I can just imagine you getting a message from Alex Mashinsky. Would you like to take? Give me your Bitcoin, and I'll send you two.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're
Yeah,
all
sure, buddy.
a little. Yeah,
No, I mean it's tough because there's a lot of stuff like that, and you never know. They may be well-meaning or whatever, but or they may have some crazy algorithm that like is the gift to God. But like it's there's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't sort of pass the straight face test, and so we're pretty excited to go with Granite, and then sort of the ability to not only be a liquidity provider but also a validator, and contribute to the network that way, I think was particularly cool.
Yeah, tell us about the logistics behind that. How did that opportunity come up, and what does that mean to be a Stacks node validator?
I'll let Josh take that, but it's basically, you got to have a computer, and you need to have the programming chops to be able to set all of this stuff up. And again, that's something where the village came in and helped. We have a wonderful collaborator that Josh mentioned that helped work with us on that.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of just came up around the same conversations when we were joining Granite, and just the opportunity to be delegated these Stacks tokens, and find ourselves amongst some of these really large players in the space who have also joined on as validators for us was, um, like Mark said, one, we want to do what we can to help the ecosystem, but two, it was really sort of validating for us on our whole journey with all of this. It felt good to join these large companies that we admired, who are also part of it. So we've been talking to uh, Stacks developers from you know there, I think one gentleman's in Romania and all over, who've been helping us with like the command line structures and things like this, as Mark mentioned, and doing the virtual imaging and things like this. And this has been going on for a couple of weeks, and we're actually just going live. Is probably in a few hours, so we're super proud. And also, of course, we aren't we're happy about the rewards that we can reap also, by doing this. So that part is really exciting. And I just think too, just holistically, to be involved in multiple things that Stacks are doing is really cool. There was just this amazing conference called OpNext at Strategy here in Tyson's Corner, and Stacks was a sponsor. And then I met a couple gentlemen from Set Dev who are developing within the Stacks, and it was really just randomly started talking to them. I think I asked one to take my photo, and I was like, "Yeah, I got to get Stacks in here," and he was like, "Oh, I work with them." And then I was sending notes in the telegrams and all, and it's just really cool to be good neighbors, and also being able to innovate with the things that Stacks are doing. And
I mean, we're building that future together, right? And so, like, to play our small part and kind of like breathing life into this new financial system, um is really exciting. And I think that's kind of the opportunity here.
Yep, that's what I love about working in the space, is helping to scale out Bitcoin and help with its proliferation. And a
And
quick
we can
shout out,
still
yeah.
engage like at a human scale with it. You know what I mean? It hasn't gotten so big that like it's just like some, like these big banks to deal, it's like you're dealing with this faceless entity. In this case, like there are some people we could just call and, hang out with in Romania, that can make it happen. So
Yeah,
it's
true.
pretty cool, right?
Yeah, yeah. I want to give a shout out to Set Dev and Set Zeus, Jesus, as you mentioned,
yeah,
two great builders in the space. So we need to
Mhm.
get them on the show. Actually, I cannot
they,
believe they haven't been on the show yet. So
his
soon.
and his partner, who also, I wasn't there both days, but the day I saw his business partner there, or one of the colleagues speak, I mean, great teachers, so they must be really great to work with.
Yep, the Stacks community is a real one. They're amazing. Well, I know we're approaching the end of the show time, but what else do you think might be missing from the conversation? Is there anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, no, I would just encourage uh folks who are, curious about some of these ideas, particularly those that maybe have a property that they inherited, from their family or whatever, to look into this. I mean, and particularly those that are in the farming business, to think about how you might be able to integrate renewable energy, agrivoltaics, and Bitcoin mining into your operation, and how it might be transformational. And we would love to talk with you, because we're learning while doing, and it's a journey that we're we're meeting cool people that can sort of take our ideas and have a unique angle on it, and then we're learning as well, right? And hoping to just build mutual understanding and hopefully build a path for ourselves. And so, come join the revolution, like get involved, and we'd love to talk with you and work with you, on this. And we really appreciate you providing us with this forum so that other people can engage with us and hopefully find some area of what we're doing that like speaks to them and partner in some way.
Absolutely. Well, where can people go to stay in touch and make sure that they are up to date with everything you're doing on the farm?
So as I mentioned, I'm building in public on a LinkedIn. So if you look up, I know Mark Smith is like practically anonymous, but if you look up Mark Smith and Carbon Country, you'll find me and you can follow me. That would be awesome. I'd love to engage with you on that. Both of us are on X. I'm at Carioca Mark. I was born in Rio, so that's the Carioca. And Josh, maybe you can share your X details, but we'd love to interact with people.
Yeah.
And Mark, let's just get your socials for the people too on X.
Yeah, on X, X is at Carioca Mark.
And Josh, yours is?
I should come up if you search Josh Phelps, but I could not get the actual handle. So I am J for Josh PH3 LPS. So it's pretty easy still. But yeah, if you search myself and Carbon Country, but yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining, because this is a really exciting conversation, and it was just so synchronistic that it ended up being on Earth Day.
That's a beautiful thing, man. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.
Sean,
absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to have you on for a follow-up at some point. Maybe after I take an in-person tour and grab some
There
footage.
You go.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Nice.
All right.
Well, thanks again for everyone else for tuning into this conversation. Please do share this one out, because I think this is a very important conversation, especially if you have anyone in your life that is not really up to date with the current state of what Bitcoin mining really means for the environmental impact. It's a complicated, nuanced conversation. So I think this is an important one to share out. So I'll give you one more nudge to please share the space out, like, subscribe on all of our socials and channels, and we'll be back next week, as always, for another episode of the Leather Lounge. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us in the Leather Lounge. We record each episode live, and if you'd like to listen in or join us on stage, make sure to give us a follow on X at LeatherBTC. Leather is your gateway to everything Bitcoin, from DeFi to stacks, ordinals, runes, stamps, NFTs, and more. You can find loads of helpful crypto content on our YouTube channel and visit our blog and learn center at leather.io.